Welcome back to the Wizards of Amazon podcast, your weekly blueprint for explosive success. I'm Carlos Alvarez, full-time successful Amazon seller and organizer of the largest Amazon seller meetup group in the world. Let's do this. Welcome to the Wizards of Amazon podcast, where we cover all things private label. My name is Carlos Alvarez, and I will be your host for the show. On today's episode, we have an amazing guest, Alfredo Borjas of SellersFunding, the Customer Success Manager. Alfredo, what's up?
Hey, how are you, Carlos? Thank you for having me today. Very exciting talking to you today.
Absolutely. Alfredo, we've actually, I think we're COVID friends. Like we met during COVID, right? We've actually gone out to eat twice and everything.
Oh, yeah, 100%. We've been following the rules, but, trying to make our best on business. So, yes, yeah. COVID friends.
We have to remember that 10 years from now that we're COVID friends. We connected during COVID. We have a lot of mutual friends in SellersFunding and Tim Jordan. So it was just absolutely amazing to connect with you and meet. Other cool thing is SellersFunding is actually the amazing sponsor of our Amazon Seller Meetup group, our Wizards of Amazon Meetup group, which I'm super proud of. And I look forward to hearing a lot of your presentations locally in the group, since you're local to South Florida now.
Yes, of course. Very excited to work with the group. We have a lot of valuable information to share from the business standpoint, from the financial standpoint. At the end at SellersFunding, what we're trying to do is just to help out sellers, in different stages from the moment they start till they start growing, and just, kind of help them out through the whole process until they become, multiple figure sellers, which is what we like to see, of course.
I love it, man. So this is your first time on this show. No doubt that you will be a frequent guest. So I get to pick on you a lot in the future. I'm loving it. Just a few questions out the gate, because at these, as we were playing by the rules and, social distancing, I personally have not been able to learn, what about Alfredo pre-SellersFunding. So can you introduce yourself to me almost and all of the listeners about you and how you get to SellersFunding?
Of course. Yeah. So I'm actually an attorney. I know. It's kind of weird. I specialized in insurance and reinsurance claims, an international, big international firm. So there was a point where I wanted to make a switch. I was really good with the clients, was really good at getting new business, and I was very interested in technology. So I made a leap of faith into software as a service. So I started as a business development manager at a big software as a service company, and that's when I basically started working in sales and technology, and just changed my whole perspective of I was doing before, and started having real fun with hyper growth models and all of those good stuff. So at the end, I got this tremendous opportunity from SellersFunding to join them. Pretty exciting company with a lot of opportunity of growth. Of course, it's in the e-commerce space, specialized. So as everybody knows, this has been a lucky year for everybody in the space. Besides the horrible trend that we've seen across the other industries. But basically I've continued my career in SellersFunding within business development and helping our clients get bigger and have a better experience with financial products. So that's a short history of of what I was doing and doing now.
My mind almost defaulted to when I saw customer success manager, because after this, I want to get into that. But my mind almost defaulted to you were the top customer service person in this major Fortune 500 company. But lawyer, that I would not have won that bet. If somebody said, tell me one thing out of these three that is not true about this person, I would have picked lawyer. That is crazy awesome. That's a huge leap too, man.
I know, man. And it was basically because I realized that I liked business, and I liked growing businesses and getting those, important customers in, the organizations. And it was basically a very interesting switch. And I'm loving it I'm loving it, really.
Awesome. We're going to be talking about sellers funding a lot through this. And I wanted to learn more about you as a person first before getting into sellers funding. But can you, by the way, I love the name. I don't know if it was intentional, but I feel like a lot of people, when they think of sellers funding, they think of, this is this amazing company that can get me the capital I need to scale my business, which obviously it does. But you guys do a lot more than that. Than like, I'm gonna say just that with air quotes. Can you give the listeners like a brief what is sellers funding?
Yeah, well, basically, our name describes this, quite good. We started off offering loans to e-commerce companies only, and we maintain that philosophy on being on that industry only, and we basically provide working capital for sellers, right? Sellers funding now has a different range of products. We currently have financial solutions for doing international payments. We have a digital wallet. We have, a full dashboard that integrates, your funding options with how you're going to be paying abroad to make your international FX transactions. So it's become a much more robust system. We are mainly a technology company, okay, improving processes in order to get the sellers the best that they can have from us besides funding. So yeah. And right now our offering ranges between $15,000 to $1 million in funding, and in very specific cases we're able to extend the lines even further. But yeah, it's been an exciting ride. Specifically this year, we've seen sellers at the beginning of the year, they were quite small, and they have tripled in size. We see the data, and it's just very compelling and very inspiring to see all these people that started pretty small, and they've been very constant in what they do in Amazon, for example, and Shopify and all the platforms that we support, and see that growth within the company. So yeah.
As a customer success manager at Sellers Funding, sorry, I was muted, but my dog, I think like everybody working from home, and you just have the stuff you normally don't encounter from the offices. But as a customer success manager, what would you say is your most rewarding and hardest part of being a customer success manager at Sellers Funding?
So the hardest part, I'm going to start with the hardest part, will be looking at, sometimes we love to set the expectations correctly with our customers, with our clients. When we see, companies that are starting off, they have very cool products, but they're not ready for funding yet. So for me, sometimes it's very hard to, uh, sometimes sellers feel disappointed, but we try and give that experience like, hey, don't feel disappointed. You need to carry on. The products are really cool. You guys have a great idea. You need to move forward. But when you guys are ready, we'll be here to help you. Because sometimes people think that because they've started off, they are ready for the world. As you know, Amazon takes a bit more experience and work than just from one day to another. Just getting funding, for example, or the other financial solutions that we offer. So that's part of our hardest parts of the day, is when we have to, say no. But we always say no, that they're not ready now, but we're going to work with you in order to get there. So
and let me clarify. Let me clarify that. Excuse me. That's somebody who has an account and they feel that they need, and maybe they do, or could use some capital to scale their business, but since they're so new or don't have a proven track record of sales, Sellers Funding will have to have them revisit another day.
Yeah, correct. And it's not always bad news, because we do have this extensive talks with them. We have that, that personal touch of getting to know their business, getting to know them, and say, hey, you're not ready now, but we look at you as a great opportunity in a couple of months. So we usually revisit their accounts every few months, and sometimes they're not even aware, and we call in and say, hey, looks like you guys are ready now, are you interested? So they can say, well, they are caring about our business. So
Yeah, well, sometimes no is the best thing that can happen to you right then. I can definitely tell you many, many, many moons ago as a seller, I wish some people, I mean, I take full responsibility, but I wish it was Cabbage and a few others way back when, I wish they would have told me no.
yeah.
I didn't, of course I wanted it. And of course I had these great ideas and I wanted to scale. But there's no way I should have taken, and again, I take full responsibility, or been qualified for this amount. And
Yes.
in my financial illiteracy days, I didn't understand the ramifications of that. But again, my fault. I wish they would have told me no, though.
Yeah, one of the things that we do is that we tell our clients and our customers that we don't want to give you a solution that will get you in trouble. So that's why we have this very smart automated AI system that will give us that rate and will give us, like, they're not ready now, but let's look at them in 1.5 months when their cash flow is much better, because we don't want the seller to get in trouble. So that's one of the premises. We do keep that expectation really clear from the beginning. And as I tell you, one of the most rewarding things, that was the other questions you had, is that once you start off with a client that maybe starts off with a small amount, and you start working with them, and you see that they're actually investing in their company and the company's growing, in a few months they come back and say, hey, you know what, yeah, we spent all the money, but we grew the company 3 times as large as we started. We need more. And when you look at the numbers and the data, you say, wow, the working capital product is working for them. So I think that's pretty rewarding, is once you establish that relationship with them and see the growth and see the value, and that basically that growth on the companies that we establish relationships with.
Heck yeah, I can imagine that being rewarding. So
Yeah.
Something that I feel like you guys at Seller Funding have a very, maybe especially you at Sellers Funding have a unique insight on, is this so-called explosion of sales that you alluded to in the beginning on e-commerce, that we were on the right side of this. And obviously feeling horrible for anyone that was on the wrong side of this, but we were on the right side of this COVID, this pandemic, this lockdown, being in e-commerce. But no, I don't believe anybody has been able to see it as clearly as your side. Like you said, you're connected to these accounts and you're probably funding this hyper growth. What has been your take over this last year?
So when the pandemic started, we freaked out as a company. We saw other lenders, not having such, starting to have a very bad time. We were a bit scared on the outstanding balances that we had, see what was going to happen with our basically our customers. We were like, well, let's hope that we can shake this off, right? What started happening, of course, was that because of the lockdowns, people started shopping online, and a lot of new people, especially, older folks that love to go to their stores, they learned that they couldn't go out. Okay. So they started joining the internet by force. But, it was something that it was just shook the entire world and took everybody by surprise. Everybody was like, I cannot go to the grocery store because I have pre-existing condition. Now I have to do my groceries online. So that started shaking up on our side the numbers, right? We started seeing companies, like I was telling you before, that were selling at the beginning of the year $10,000-$15,000 a month, and now they're selling 4-5 times that a month, just because they added some new products that maybe were starting to pick up, which were interesting, and they maintained their products that they usually sell. And we started seeing those peaks of growth that were just crazy. I mean, and we're still looking at that trend. We also have a phenomenon in Amazon. There's a lot of new stores coming in with great new products. So that's the competition from within. It's starting to be very interesting as well. So yeah, it's been an exciting year for the industry.
When you say a lot of new stores being added, are you able to know whether these are a lot of existing sellers with prior experience that are adding new storefronts, or is this predominantly, newbies coming into Amazon?
I think we have phenomenon of both. Okay, experienced sellers are, because of their growth, they're getting into new business ventures within Amazon. We also have the phenomenon of brick and mortar owner stores that they sell. I have a few examples, but people that sold like things for pools, or this is just an example. You can see them switching from their their activity at the brick and mortar shop to internet. So they're opening Shopify stores, Magento store. They're starting to offer their products in Amazon as well. So we're looking at a shift in in retail in general. So yeah, but it's not necessarily that. We have seen a lot of our sellers expanding their operation, and now we see as well the interest of going international. So people that are having a lot of success in the US, they're starting to look at the other markets such as Canada, Mexico, and UK and Europe. So yeah, we have big sellers right now with important expansion plans for Q1 and Q2 2021.
How does that work with a larger seller? Like let's just say adding Canada, and they have a lot of success at 20, 40, 60, 80, 100 million a year in sales in the US platform, but Canada, they're starting from zero. How does that work with with funding, with sellers funding, when you're approaching? Are you looking at Canada as you're starting from zero, get some experience, or what happens?
Well, in the case that if they're already a customer of ours, the first thing that we recommend them to do is to, of course, consider the other options that we have on the digital wallet, for example. So they receive the payouts from the new marketplace in Canada directly there, instead of depositing that money into their business bank accounts in the US. Just because Amazon takes a lot in those conversions and those payments from Canada to the US, right? So the first thing that we usually recommend is, like, let's set up a digital wallet. So when Canada payouts from your Amazon store start coming in, they will go directly to your digital wallet, and then you decide what to do with your money on the local currency. Because when you see the transfers coming in directly to the US account, you'll see that Amazon takes a lot of fees from those transactions. So one of the first things we recommend is, beside a good business plan, is to have solutions in place so you make the most of your money. Because at the end, the as you know, the profit margins are going to be pretty much the same as the ones they have in the US. It's a matter of, how do you optimize those profit margins in order to get the money back in the US. Okay, so that's one of the first recommendations. We've seen cases in which they start off really small operation and they do very well, and they start growing it from scratch. We see other cases where they're more aggressive and they just do a very big investment and put the FBA up to work in Canada for auto, which could work as well. The data right now for the last two quarters to give you a final response on that, but we've seen some of them have very, very good success in Canada and the UK as well.
Let's use our crystal ball a little bit here, and we could be wrong. So none of us know. Just disclaimer: none of us know what's going to happen in 2021. Lot of things can impact that. Beginning with COVID, the political climate, and just a lot of different things. But what's your take on it? Like, how's seller funding going to be approaching 2021 for someone like, for example, I've been a seller for almost 15 years, and this 2000 we just had what's looking like going to be 60% growth in a single year, which poses its own host of problems. And I expect that the new norm next year will be stronger based on these new buyers on Amazon, but they're not going to be as strong as what we're seeing now. So I anticipate that I may, for the first year, have an amazing year, but have less in gross sales next year than I do this year. So how does that affect lending?
Yeah. So basically, well, if we had a crystal ball, we would have known that we're going to have the COVID this year, which would have meant like the triple in size in the whole industry. But I think you're right. It looks like probably next year we're going to see that growth's going to still go up, but we're going to see it's not going to be as aggressive as this year. And in the lending part, we're going to see new faces, new Amazon sellers coming in with very competitive pricing. That it's going to force some of the traditional sellers maybe to put down prices, compromise and on some of the profits, and of course that affects lending. So if your sales are starting to decline, you will have access to less capital. I mean, that's how it works. We are based in performance, and based on performance, we take a look at at how your sales are going. If sales are great and growing, then of course we can extend more capital. If your sales are stalled, but you plan yourself correctly, we will be able to keep extending working capital. But of course, if your sales are declining, it's like everything. You need to figure out the best way to optimize your postings and your listings, and get the best out of it. But it's going to be, I think it's going to be an interesting year because we're still going to see that growth coming in, and a lot of competition and very interesting products. So.
But
Yep.
you do see growth continuing to build on what we're looking at now.
Yeah, definitely. Because as you see, I mean, one of the key point data that we saw this week is that we now have a vaccine. For example, I'm just gonna talk about the reality of COVID. The reality of COVID, they're saying that up till April, they're gonna be the first vaccinations with frontline workers, this groups that are high risk groups, and then by July, by end year, is that everybody's going to be getting the vaccine, right? So we, because of that deployment not being as fast as we thought it was going to be, or we think it's going to be, that's going to keep the partial lockdown still on, because people are going to still be careful, and travel is going to it's going to grow as well, but it's going to be much less than the traditional years. So I do believe that the effects of what we saw this year are going to be extended a bit next year.
Well, I obviously hope vaccines.
But that's a personal opinion, though.
No, that's what we're talking about. That's what we're talking about. That's good. We get to look back at this in a year and decide whether we were geniuses or whether we got it wrong. That's fine. But I'm hoping,
definitely,
like you, that everybody gets their vaccines yesterday. You know what I mean? Like as fast as possible. I'm wondering, and I'm hoping you're right from the e-commerce side. Based on that deployment, it's going to translate into increased e-commerce sales. I wonder though, like, are we getting to a spot where, knowing that the vaccines are kind of there, coupled with COVID fatigue, which is, I'm seeing people a lot more reckless now, that it's almost like a mini vacation to go to the supermarket. Like, let's just get out there and start buying.
Yeah, I think that's true as well. But people now have a new confidence in e-commerce as well, because going out not necessarily means shopping out. Okay, we do see another phenomenon is that just people go into a store, they just go on Amazon and compare prices, and they say, hey, you know what? I'm gonna get it $5 less if I just click here on my phone. That's it. So that's the other thing that people have learned to do. So we do need to study how that's going to work out. Yeah, people are going to go back to the malls, are going to go back to retail, but maybe not everything it's going to be, completed in retail. Like I tell you, now people can just go online, compare prices, and see what's the best.
I agree. Absolutely. Alfredo, you've been awesome. I want to be respectful of your time, and before letting you escape from the show, how can listeners best get a hold of you to learn more about Sellers Funding, or even to discuss just maybe, because you're a wealth of knowledge of just, financial best practices when it comes to business?
Well, well, people can reach out. Thank you so much for the invitation. I think it's really interesting to have this kind of conversations. They can reach me out directly on my email. That's alfredo@sellersfunding.com. That will be, the best way to get a hold of me. We can definitely jump into a call and talk about, if people are ready for funding, if you guys are ready for going into digital wallets and start making payments abroad, so we can basically clarify several topics of interest with the company. Also, you can follow me on LinkedIn. So that will be Alfredo Borjas and my LinkedIn URL. And I do post a lot of information about, sellers, e-commerce, Amazon, and other topics of interest. And basically trying to do our best with the sellers community. That's our mission, and that's what we're aiming for.
I'll include the email and LinkedIn and everything in the show notes of this episode. Alfredo, you've been great. Final question I have for you is, what is your favorite book and why?
So on the business part will be Predictable Revenue from Aaron Voss. It basically shows that if you have a clear strategy on how you sell anything in your businesses, you will get into a point where you can predict the revenue that you should be getting. So it's a very interesting read. It's not that long, and it has very good insights about hyper growth models and how you get there. So that will be on the business part, one of my favorite books to read.
Awesome. I've not read that book. I always love when a guest is on the show that mentions a book that I've not read. So I just pulled this up on Amazon while you were talking about it, and I'm going to add this to cart now and go ahead and get it and let you know what I think.
Awesome.
Again, Alfredo, you were awesome. Thank you so much for your time. I look forward to getting this out to where all the listeners can hear it, and meeting you again in person and having you back on the show. So thank you so much.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And count me in whenever you guys need me.
Absolutely.
All right, man.
Liked what you heard and want to stay connected? Join our Facebook group or find me anywhere on social media at Wizards of Amazon, or text the word Amazon to 69922.